we should talk about Keir Starmer and his threats to ban X. Ayatollah Starmer, as you dubbed him in Spiked earlier this week. Brendan, obviously, there's been a big row over Grok, this AI tool that has been, until recently, allowing people to put women in bikinis, allegations that it's even been used to create sexual images of children, which has allowed Starmer to get up on his high horse about X and even threaten a potential ban, saying that Ofcom should use all the powers available to it under the Online Safety Act to bring X and Grok into line. Brendan, we know that this is not the motivation for Starmer's anger with X, is it really?
Not at all. The first thing I want to say is that this Grok stuff is really actually quite disgusting. There is a problem for sure. There's a problem with this kind of digital culture, because if you look at some of these examples, what you will see is, some female writer or activist or just an ordinary woman on the internet who will say something, and then there's these creepy anonymous guys underneath who will say, Grok, show this woman in a bikini. I mean, it's just really creepy stuff. It's so horrible when you see it. So there is a problem there, and you do wish that Elon Musk would get a tighter handle on that. I don't think it's a free speech issue if Elon Musk wants to decide that Grok can't do certain things, because it will just, ruin the X experience for lots of people. But when it comes to Starmer, he's so obviously exploiting this one issue to clamp down on a social media platform that causes him a lot of bother. There is a lot of anti-Starmer sentiment on there. Some of it comes from Elon Musk and Elon Musk's followers, right back to the resuscitation of the grooming gang scandal last year, to other issues, the immigration crisis. That's the platform on which Keir Starmer gets a lot of flack. He often gets community notes attached to his kind of comments where ordinary people are correcting him for things that he's got wrong. So he hates all that. But people like Starmer and others on the kind of supposedly progressive left, they had no problem when it was Twitter and when people were when it was similarly full of crazy stuff. So, for example, women were being banned for life from Twitter for correctly saying he about men who claim to be women, or for calling people perverts because they wanted to have their bollocks waxed by female, beauticians. And all these kinds of scandals went on for years and years. Similarly horrible stuff, similarly sexist stuff. And of course, the so-called progressives had no problem with that at all, because it was censorship or it was weirdness on their side. So I just think it's so obvious that Starmer is affronted by the existence of this mass platform through which ordinary people, plebs, people he would consider to be gammon and right-wingers and extremists, they can take him to task. They can hold him to account. That's what's really riling him. And that's why he has this incredibly authoritarian instinct to potentially shut down a whole platform. So we should have no truck with that whatsoever.
Yeah, and Tom, it is worth stressing that would bring the UK in line with North Korea, China, Russia, not exactly known as liberal democratic countries, I think it's fair to say.
No,
and this is from Starmer, Mr. Human Rights.
Yeah. I know, it's not nothing to ban one of the biggest social media platforms from your territory, which is why no one outside of the countries that you've mentioned have done it. Brazil did it for a short period of time, which was outrageous after Musk climbed down over what they wanted him to do. It ceased. But still, this is not a company that you really want to keep. And it's so obvious that this is not about safeguarding children or making the user experience on X appropriate for women or clamping down on activity online, which is kind of uncontroversially illegal.
Yeah.
For a couple of simple examples, one of which is if Ofcom was going to open an investigation to anyone because they were concerned about sexual offences online, they would surely open an investigation into Snapchat. And there's certain forms of online kind of child sexual offences, according to police figures, where whenever a platform is recorded in those crimes, almost half of the time it's Snapchat, because that's obviously where a lot of young people hang out. You take something like Blue Sky, sort of the woke alternative to X, kind of Twitter 1.0 in exile in so many respects. That has a very well documented problem with death threats. You can really read about this. Nothing says be kind like telling a turf you've got a bullet with a name on it, apparently. But this is what goes on those platforms. And there's been no outcry about that whatsoever. No one has discussed it. It is precisely as we've said, because of the fact that, first of all, Elon Musk has been a strident critic of the government. And he's been kind of inflated into a kind of full-blown enemy of the state by this Labour Party. I mean, there was that story earlier this month that the Home Office was stepping up their monitoring of his tweets for fears that they were going to incite unrest and so on and so forth. You don't have to like the kind of quite cranky turn that Elon Musk has taken to recognize that as an absurd overreaction with quite authoritarian consequences, but also because the platform is just freer than it used to be. The powers that be were pretty happy with the big tech firms when they were willing to play ball to censor quote unquote misinformation or quote unquote hate speech. But now that you've got this eccentric billionaire who doesn't want to play ball, who does seem to have a genuine conviction that social media needs to be free and open if the digital public square is to mean anything. And they've been panicking about it ever since. So it's so transparent that this isn't about this neat issue. And I think that it's just part and parcel of the kind of periodic panics that establishments have about free speech and democracy. This is just the kind of digitized 21st century version of it, which we've seen playing out.